Good morning, Periscope. Happy Wednesday. I hope everybody's having a great morning so far. Thank you for joining Sunrise Scope. For those of you who don't know or are joining on the replay, my name is Monica Deneede and I am the founder of wisdomisthenewblack.com. Go check it out. It's pretty awesome. Hey, good morning. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for the hearts. Hey, good morning, Taylor. Buenos dias. Hey, good morning, Smiles. Thank you, VEIFF, for joining. Hey, good morning, Vicky. How are you? Good morning, and Simon from Orlando. Good morning. Good morning, Shell. Thank you, Tyra, for inviting followers. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, Caprice. Good morning, Nikki. Walker. Good morning, Nikki. Thank you, Smiles, for inviting followers. Good morning, Dana. Good morning, Derby Line. Good morning, Fire Preacher. Thanks, Vicky. Good morning, Inspiration. Thanks for inviting followers. Thank you, Shell, for inviting followers. Good morning from Tennessee. Good morning, Humble 8619. Thank you, Derby Line, for inviting followers. Good morning, Angela. How are you? Good to see you again. Thank you for always joining. Good morning, Epic Wish. Thanks for inviting followers. I know, Vicky, you're up, girl. You killing it today. Did the kids destroy the Christmas tree, Vicky, or is it still alive? I just need to know, because that was a lot of work. Oh, thank you, Epic Wish. Amen. Thank you, Nikki. Good morning, Leonard. Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Minstrel. Kadisha from Indianapolis. Hey, my home. No, it's still up. Okay, thanks, Vicky. Oh, the pies looked good last night. They were really good. They were really good sweet potato pies. Good morning from Dallas. Good morning from North Carolina. Good morning, R. Will. Hello. Good morning, Shomac. Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Apostle Mike Hathaway. Honor to have you, sir. Good morning, Travell, Machete, R. Will, Shomac, Ravish, Chowdhury. I'm sorry. Smiles. Oh, you started my 5-day detox. Amen. What does wisdom is the new black mean? All right, so I'll go ahead and give you guys a quick insight into why I chose the name Wisdom is the New Black, especially since Apostle was throwing shade at it. So the reason I chose the name Wisdom is the New Black is because one of the things that I want to incorporate into the idea of Wisdom is the New Black and into my website is fashion. I'm really into fashion, but one thing I've noticed about fashion is if you watch every season, they'll say that this color or that color is the new black. So whether, pink is the new black, maroon is the new black, tan is the new black, whatever color is most popular in that season, that's the color that they say is the new black. But what I believe is that wisdom should be the new black because wisdom never changes, because wisdom never leads you astray, and because wisdom will never fail you. If you walk in a wise life and you make decisions based upon wisdom, you won't ever have to regret anything because wisdom will always lead you down a path of righteousness, down goodness. So that's why I chose Wisdom is the New Black, because I think more than a fashion color, more than anything, more than any trend, that wisdom should be our focus and that wisdom should be the new black and what we always put on. We're supposed to arm ourselves with the armor of God. It says that a Proverbs 31 woman is clothed with strength and dignity. And I think as people of God and as people trying to make wise decisions, as people, trying to live a kingdom life, that every morning when we get up, one of the first things we should put on is the wisdom of God. Because what the wisdom of God does is it protects us from making bad decisions. It protects us from having to regret things. It protects us from getting into relationships that could destroy our purpose. It protects us from being distracted. It causes us to focus. And wisdom truly helps us to see into the future and to focus on the future. Wisdom is about not being so focused on the temporary, not being focused on carnal things, not being focused on world things, but wisdom allows you to peer into the future, to have vision, to remember what you truly are working for, to press on towards the goal. So there, in short, is why why my Periscope, why my website, why everything is Wisdom is the New Black. I wanted to tie it into the fashion idea, but also because I am most passionate about seeing the people of God walking in the wisdom of God. I think if every saved person truly began to read their Bible and understand the wisdom of God, that they would discover who God is and consequently discover who they are, and then be empowered to walk in their purpose. Because one of the greatest things that has come against the Christian nation and Christian people is scandal and is falling. So people are constantly falling, people are constantly in sin, and people are constantly succumbing to scandal because they don't walk in the wisdom of God. And this is why I'm so passionate about people being empowered through wisdom. You know, the Bible says that my people perish for their lack of knowledge or for their lack of understanding. So it's because of a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding, or a lack of wisdom that the Christian world no longer has power, no longer has authority, and is no longer making a difference. Even if we think about Solomon, Solomon was one of great wisdom, was one, who had, was great in knowledge, was very wise. One, when God asked him what he wanted, he said, God, give me wisdom and give me knowledge. And as a result of that, he was highly respected in his community. People, queens came to see him from faraway lands to pay him for his wisdom and his knowledge. So I believe that he had diplomatic power, he had political influence, that he was able, to influence a nation and to influence a people because he had wisdom. So the reason we're seeing so many powerless Christians today and powerless people is because we lack wisdom, is because we go around fighting over stupid things like red Starbucks cups, or go around fighting over stupid things like why people are taking the Christ out of Christmas, instead of having true wisdom and knowledge that would empower us to have diplomatic power, that would empower us to have political influence. So this is why I am so passionate about wisdom. It will keep you from falling into scandal. It will keep you from giving in to your flesh, because what wisdom does is it tells you to crucify your flesh and submit every thought unto the obedience of Christ. And this is why we need wisdom. So I'm sorry I kind of got on a tangent when somebody asked me why wisdom is the new black, because I don't want anyone to think that I just chose that name by accident or chose that name by mistake, or that it was just something fun or something cute. Nothing I do is fun or cute, but it is usually very calculated. So the reason I chose that name is because I truly believe that it is my calling, and what God has created me to do is to remove the blinders from the world and to begin to impart wisdom into people so they no longer perish for their lack of wisdom or their lack of understanding. So that's why I'm so passionate about wisdom. I'm so passionate about teaching, because I believe that if you have, I was taught at a very young age, even though my parents weren't saved, I was taught at a very young age that knowledge is power. And it really is true that knowledge is power and wisdom from God is power. So when we, can submit ourselves unto the wisdom of God and begin to learn the things and ways of God, then we will begin to be elevated because we have that wisdom and knowledge, and we can have more authority. We're running around dumb with no wisdom, no knowledge, no Bible, no nothing, no degrees, nothing, wanting to change the world, saying, Holy Ghost, do it. But God's saying, get some degrees, study my word, walk in wisdom, and then you'll be elevated and you can have some influence. So we have to understand that we have to do our part and we have to be wise. We have to make wise decisions. So that's why I'm so passionate about wisdom. But to everybody who's been joining this week, you know that we are talking about overcoming loneliness. Yesterday we talked about overcoming loneliness as it pertains to your calling, and as it pertains to the fact that loneliness is usually a sign that you don't know who you are and that you lack identity. So I only got to finish part 1 yesterday, so I'm going to continue with part 2. So the first question I want us to think about in regards to loneliness is the fact of, why do you need someone? So loneliness makes you believe that you need a person. Whether you're single and you believe you need a husband, whether you're single and you believe you need a wife, whether you feel you don't have enough friends, whether you feel your life would be better with a mentor, with whatever it may be, there is a reason behind why you think you need someone. Why do you feel like you're lacking? Why do you feel alone? And we discovered yesterday that the root of loneliness is usually insecurity. But what I want to talk about today is what caused this root of insecurity. Because if you can get to the root of a problem, then you can begin to address it. And then what happens from there is you can begin to overcome loneliness. So I think we have to get to the root of why we are insecure. And so the reason that we are insecure is because we are dealing with a measure of brokenness. And brokenness is usually a result of undealt with childhood issues. So as we said yesterday, I was reading a study in Psychology Today about identity and about why America is in an identity crisis. And they said this. They said having a strong identity in adolescence rests in part on having a strong sense of trust in infancy, autonomy in toddlerhood, and the ability to play as preschool years, and a solid work ethic in the elementary school years. The issues of childhood, may reemerge later in life as well if they are not dealt with. So right there, even from a scientific and psychological perspective, they're saying, that when people have identity crisis, the root of this actually usually happens in their childhood, and it is due to these undealt with childhood issues that these things are allowed to perpetuate and to continue when they're not dealt with. So what I want to do really quick is I want to go through, because I only have about 14 minutes and then I got to jump off here for work, but I want to go through a few of these underlying issues that make us insecure and cause us to deal with loneliness. So the first issue I want to come to that I think is a huge reason people deal with loneliness and is, a root underneath it that they don't even recognize is abandonment. So what abandonment is this usually stems from, but doesn't necessarily have to be, but abandonment usually stems from father issues or mother issues. So whether your father abandoned you, mother abandoned you, or even an important leader in your life abandoned you, what happens when you are abandoned by a father, abandoned by a mother, or abandoned by someone you wanted to trust is this. It makes you look for your validation and your identity from men and women. You become an attention-seeking person. You even become manipulative and controlling because you're trying to persuade people to stay with you and not abandon you. When you've dealt with abandonment, it also makes you a very performance-based person because you want to constantly try to prove your worth to keep people from abandoning you. And it also usually will make you attach very quickly to people, and you don't deal well with change. So these are some of the effects of abandonment. So when you were abandoned as a child, this will cause you to deal with loneliness in your adult life if you do not deal with this abandonment. Another thing that happens in our childhood that we deal with now that causes loneliness is being paranoid. So people who are extremely paranoid are usually paranoid because someone, when they were a young child who they were supposed to be able to trust, broke that trust. So, whether that was a teacher, whether that was a parent, whether that was an older sibling, a cousin, an aunt, or an uncle, this person betrayed your trust. And now in your adult life, you've become extremely paranoid that everybody is going to break your trust, betray you, hurt you, and you live this life of paranoia, which causes loneliness. Another thing we struggle with in our adulthood, if not dealt with from our childhood, is the idea of abuse or being used. So if you're abused as a young child, or if you were used as a child, whether you went through your parents went through a divorce and they were constantly trying to force you to choose sides, and this made you feel like you were being used, whether you were sexually abused, whatever it is, mentally, physically abused, what this does in your adult life is it makes you afraid to rely on others and believe in others for fear that they are using you, fear that they will turn on you. And what this causes is this will make you a detached person who deals heavily with detachment. So you won't be able to truly connect or trust people, again, which results in loneliness. Another one, and I think this is a very huge one, that will cause us to face loneliness in our adult life if we experience this, is rejection. And this is huge because a large amount of people, I would say if I ask people on this broadcast, go ahead and give me a hand up in the comments if you've dealt with rejection or if you've ever been rejected. I imagine that the majority of people on this broadcast right now would say that they've dealt with rejection or they've been rejected, whether that was by your parents, whether that was by your family, whether that was by your school friends, whether that was cousins, maybe you were bullied, left out, made fun of. I guarantee you that just about every person on this broadcast and replaying this broadcast has dealt with rejection. So what rejection will force you to do is it will make you so fearful of people rejecting you, you will do one of two things. You will either attach so tightly and suffocate people because you don't want them to reject you, and you will become a performance-based person, always trying to perform well so they don't reject you, or you will become extremely detached and not want to connect, not want to have friends, not want to be a part of your family, not want to be a part of community, not want to get involved in church for fear of rejection. It will keep you from being free because rejection will say, don't be transparent, don't tell the truth, don't show them who you really are, and don't be honest because they will reject you. But unless you become honest and transparent, you can never become free. So again, rejection works in cycles and will keep you and cause you to be lonely in your adult life if not dealt with. Another one is the need to be understood. And I think a lot of people are constantly saying this. I wish someone understood me. I wish someone would get me. I wish someone, could just understand the way I feel, understand the way I think, understand me. And the root cause of needing to be understood in your adult life is this. You didn't have a safe place to voice your feelings, to voice your needs, to voice your dreams, to voice your desires, your fears, your worries as a child. So now you desperately desire to have a voice and to find someone who will listen to you and get you. So what happens is you will become very angry when no one gets you or understands you completely, and then you will begin to isolate yourself, which will cause you to deal with loneliness. We have to understand that probably this is something I'd really dealt with. I was told to shut up a lot as a child. I was abused by my father, and I really wasn't allowed to have a voice. I was never allowed to defend myself. It was no questions asked. It was you do as I say. And so this caused me to feel like I never had a voice. So this is one of the things I dealt with, feeling like I always wanted to be understood. I always just wanted someone I could feel safe with, whatever that was. So then when I felt like somebody didn't understand me every second of every day, I would get angry, and then I would begin to push everyone away and isolate myself, which then caused loneliness. Another one that we deal with in our adulthood that is caused from things that happened in our childhood is this, rebellion. So, maybe you had extremely controlling parents, had extremely controlling friends. Maybe you didn't like what people said about you, how they abused you, how they hurt you, how they broke your trust. Or maybe you were in an abusive relationship, maybe sexual abuse, physical abuse, and were forced to do things that weren't right or that you didn't want to do. So what you've done now in your adult life is you've become rebellious. So what you're doing now is you're asserting your right to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want, because you want to believe that you don't care what other people think. So it's all about rebellion, is all about the idea of being in control. If you can control your circumstances, you will be able to control the outcomes, so you won't be blindsided or hurt. But the interesting thing about rebellion is this, is that a rebel says, I'm going to do whatever I want to do in spite of what you think because I don't care. But what they're doing is, because they're so busy trying to do the opposite of what everybody wants them to do, they're actually still controlled by people because they're so obsessed with doing the opposite of what other people want them to do and getting an adverse reaction out of their parents, out of their friends, out of their spouse, out of their family. So rebellion is a liar because it makes you believe you have control and you don't care what other people think, when honestly you are dictated and controlled by what other people think because you're so busy trying to do the opposite of what other people want you to do to get a rise out of them and to get them upset. So you're still controlled by people. But that's, that rebellion will manifest itself in your adult life and cause you to be lonely because you will self-destruct and you will destroy all good relationships. So this is what we have to begin to understand about all these different circumstances that I talked about, about all these things that we deal with in childhood that will affect our adult life if not dealt with now. This is what you have to begin to understand. I really want you guys to hear this, is whether you struggle with abandonment, whether you struggle with rejection, whether you struggle with someone breaking your trust, abuse, ignoring you, controlling you, manipulating you, whatever it was that happened in your childhood, you have to begin to understand that that does not say anything about your worth and does not define you. The reason we carry these issues from our childhood into our adult life that cause loneliness is because we think that these actions that other people did to us are a result of who we are and say something about our self-worth or say something about who we are. And we have to begin to detach ourselves to understand simply that hurt people hurt people. So the reason your father abandoned you was because he was hurting and bleeding. So now he hurt you. The reason that neighbor abused you was because he was hurting and now he's hurting you. We have to understand that people rejected us, abandoned us, and hurt us, not because we weren't worthy, not because we aren't good enough, not because that says anything about us, but simply because hurt people hurt people. And the bad thing is that in childhood, we don't understand this, because what we think in childhood is, in order to survive, psychologists say that children need to believe that their parents, their adult figures, their teachers, and their leaders are good and they are perfect so that they can feel safe. So as children, we justify our parents' abuse, we justify our teachers' abuse, we justify our leaders' abuse because we need to feel safe in order to grow and in order to survive. So psychologists say that we'll justify as a child our parents' actions and begin to take them on as, we deserve this. I I did something wrong. This says something about who I am, because we cannot see our parents as wrong. We cannot see that they are in the wrong, because if so, that gives us a place where we do not feel safe. So let me give you an example of this. I want to be transparent and share something with you guys about my life. So actually, it's really interesting. So today's November 25th, and 13 years ago today, my father killed my stepmother and then killed himself. They got really heavily involved in drugs. Nobody really knows exactly what happened or what the full story was. But because my father was abusive, would constantly tell me stuff like I was fat, I was ugly, I was stupid, would call me out my name. When he killed himself, I took that as a personal offense that my father killed himself and abandoned me because I wasn't worth his love and because I wasn't good enough. So I spent my childhood believing that if I could have been better, if I would have, I came from a very performance-based family. So whenever I did well, I was in every sport you can imagine as a child. I'm extremely athletic. I would do quiz bowls. I was extremely intelligent. And I did all of this because I thought that if I could perform well enough that my father would love me and accept me, he would show up to pick me up and he would stop abusing me. But when he killed himself, I took it as a personal offense that I was not good enough as his daughter to make him want to live, that I wasn't enough reason for him to live, that I wasn't good enough, and that I had done something wrong that made him feel like he needed to kill himself. So going through my adult life, how this abandonment and rejection and abuse began to affect me as an adult was that I was constantly looking for my affirmation and validation in a man. Basically from the time I was 15 until really up till, about a year and a half ago, I was always in relationship with people, always in relationship with men, in and out. The biggest gap, I think, in a relationship break from the time I was 15 to 23 was maybe 6 months. I was always in a relationship. When I was 17, I got into a relationship with a 24-year-old man. I lived at his house for a while. So it was, people were like, why are you with somebody so much older than you? I was looking for a father. I was looking for affirmation and validation from a father. And the majority of men that I got into relationships with were drug dealers, people who had, who were abusive at times, people who had, who had a lot of traits that my father had. They were abusive. They struggled with drugs. They were violent. They were in gangs, whatever it may be. And so what I'd recognize now is that was because I was trying to find my father in a man and then make that man believe I was enough. So I was looking for a father looking for a boyfriend who had the same tendencies as my father, and then would get into relationship with him, hoping that he would validate me so that somehow I could prove that this type of man who was just like my father said that I was good enough or felt that I was good enough to justify my father's suicide and leaving me. And this caused me grave loneliness because I was constantly in bad relationships, and because no matter what any man did, no matter what any boyfriend ever did for me, it was never enough because they simply were not my father. They simply could not validate me enough. I was so insecure that it took constant affirmation, constant love. I was so needful. I needed so much attention, so much affirmation. I was so insecure. And this is how my past began to affect, my past as a child began to affect my present. And what happened is I became so lonely because no matter whatever amount of love I could find with men, no matter how many men I slept with, no matter how popular I became, how cool I became, no matter what kind of man I got attention from, it was never enough because it wasn't my father. And no matter what, I finally realized that my father killed himself and there was nothing I could do to bring him back from the grave. And I finally woke up and realized one day that I was living a life trying to prove myself to a dead man. And that was such a waste of time. And finally, what God revealed to me was that my father didn't kill himself because I wasn't enough. My father didn't kill himself because I was unlovable, but he killed himself simply because he was hurting and simply because he lacked identity and he was abused by his father. And I did not want the cycle to continue. I didn't want to be abusive to my children, be unloving to my children, reject or abandon my children. So I decided that cycle had to stop with me, because what it was doing is it was perpetuating loneliness, and I always felt alone. I always felt insecure. I never felt validated. So what we have to understand is all of these things that happen in our childhood, if not dealt with, will force us to deal with loneliness in our present times and in our future. We have to understand that when we continually allow the actions of others who hurt us and abused us from years ago to continue to control us in our life now, we are enabling the abuse to continue and to thrive in our life. Why are we allowing these people who abused us in our childhood to still have a say in who we are, to still define us? We're allowing their abuse from 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago to abuse us now because we are enabling ourselves to believe the thoughts that their abuse left. So the footprint their abuse left on our heart, left on our soul, left on our mind, and left on our memory, when we dwell on it and when we allow ourselves to be defined by it, we are enabling them to abuse us now. Whether they're even dead, alive, or still in our life, you're still allowing them and enabling them to abuse you now because you're defining yourself by their abuse. So we have to begin to understand that their abuse does not say anything about who you are and does not define you. You know, the Bible says that we are a new creation, that we are born again. And I think one of the reasons that that language and that verbiage is used of a new birth and of a new life is so that we can let go of our old life and realize we are no longer defined by what happened to us. We are not defined by our abuse, and we are not defined by our past. So this is what I want you guys to understand about loneliness. Loneliness is a lack of identity, insecurity, and hurt that really has a deeper root of something that happened to you in your childhood. Loneliness will steal your happy, it will cause you to self-destruct, and it will ruin all your relationships. So this is my challenge to all of you listening live and to all of you playing this on the replay. You owe it to yourself to take the time to do these following things. 1, admit your dysfunctions and find the root behind your loneliness. 2, begin actively tracking and noticing how these dysfunctions show up in your day-to-day life and how they affect you and your relationships and what their cycles are. And then 3, begin to actively heal from these hurts. And then 4, as a result, you will no longer be defined by your past. You will be happier, you will have better relationships, and you will be better able to succeed and walk in your actual purpose, and the spirit of loneliness will be killed and overcome in your life. So I hope you guys learned something awesome today. You know, I hope you enjoyed. I always love to share a part of my testimony and what God has brought me through. You know, this morning when I woke up and I realized today was the 13th anniversary of my father's suicide, I said, Lord, give me a way to try to share, you know, some of my testimony, to try to share a piece of what you brought me through, because 13 years ago, even though that thing came to take me out, you know, and kill me, what happened, God, is now you've used it for me to be able to talk about it and teach about it in order to deliver other people. So thank you guys for allowing me to share part of my testimony, to share part of my story. Thank you for joining part 2. I've seen several people asking, you know, where they can review these posts or view these posts again. So what I think I'm going to do is I've been trying to figure out how to save them. So unfortunately, I have an Android and I don't have an iPhone, and I still got a year's contract left on this Android. So we're going to pray God breaks it and brings me an iPhone, because even though I do believe that Androids and Samsungs are the better phone when you lay them next to an iPhone, all technology is first given to and first made for an iPhone. So you can save, you can save your Periscopes on Catch or on your iPhone, but I don't have my Periscope attached to my Twitter, so I can't even do that. So what I did find is some backwoods, underground, something way to download Periscopes on this website, but they're a little glitchy. However, Scope Download, I've used that too. God sent me an iPhone this week. Oh Lord, I need that anointing. If anybody wants to donate an iPhone to my cause. I'm just kidding. So, so I'll be uploading these to YouTube, and I will let you guys know when they're up. They may be a little glitchy, just because this website that I'm using isn't necessarily the best website, but I'm believing God for an iPhone so that I can become, I think an iPhone is the phone of choice for those who are business minded. So I'm believing God to help me work that out. But so happy Wednesday to you all. Thank you guys so much for book signing. I need to write a book phone. Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining. I love you guys. I don't have a book yet. I have some in the works. I have some products in the works. You can actually go to my website, wisdomisthenewblack.com. I have a 5-day free negativity detox on there that you can sign up to get absolutely for free. I'm working on more products. I need the Lord to take me off this full-time job so I can spend all my time teaching, preaching, writing books, making, Periscopes, whatever, making different ministry tools. So I love you guys. Happy Wednesday. I will, even though tomorrow is Thanksgiving, I will be periscoping simply because I do think that people are dealing with loneliness, especially around the time of holidays. However, because I do not have to work tomorrow, I will not be setting an alarm. So I cannot tell you what time my periscope will be tomorrow, but I hope you guys join. I know everybody is with your family, so if you're with your family, with your children, with whatever, please, don't join my periscope. Then you can always replay it. I don't want anybody to miss the holidays or miss their family for my periscope. But if you're able to join, I will see you tomorrow for Sunrise Scopes. Oh, great. For all of you first time on my broadcast, I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining. Be sure to always invite your followers. You can actually copy the URL from this broadcast and share it on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want, because I just want to see people free from loneliness. So I love you guys. You guys are awesome. I'll be praying for you, and I will see you tomorrow. I would usually say bright and early, but I doubt that it would be bright and early simply because I'm not setting an alarm. But I will see you guys tomorrow. We're going to dig deeper into how to overcome loneliness. So today I went into the root of it and kind of went a little deep into soul issues. But tomorrow I'm going to give you guys some practical steps of how to overcome loneliness in your life. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Have an awesome day. I love you guys, and I'll be praying for you guys. Happy Sunrise Scope.